Hi, welcome back to Brooks's Bass Corner. Today I give you part 3 of the Neil Fairclough interview from January 2015, just prior to Queen's shows at the O2 here in London. If you enjoy the video, please hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell and give us a thumbs up. Enjoy the video.
British Airways completely mashed up this bass, and I just thought, can you imagine if it was my Fender or something? You know, I was really pleased that we didn't. So I was quite glad to do that. Yeah, I was glad to do it. But of course, these get shipped out with containers and stuff, and it's all it's all properly done, you know. But we used to carry stuff out, thinking, oh gosh, you know. But I think I took that to Japan when I was doing it with the Floyd thing, you know. Okay. And yeah, no, I think that I think 3's enough, really. You know, I've got, but well, 4 really, isn't it? Because I used the other one, but just having enough there is good. You know, I think what we worked out is that the main bass that I used, sort of 80%, 70% of stuff on, was most well balanced, and the output was great for the guy for Rob Collins and some TV stuff we did. The black one I used just because I wanted flat wound and trying to do the, you know, when you hear that boom doo doo doo, you know, it's just that
it's the
sort of
second
thing, yeah. And I use for fat bottom girls the
detune.
The detune.
The amp you're using, is that an LH1000? Is it a kilo?
No, that's exactly what it was on the 2012. Okay. On this one, I've got 4 LH1000s, nice. two running, and we've got 2 spares. Yeah. Although something happened with one, I think Steve's fixing it up.
Nice simple amp.
And what we have got 2 15s and 2 2x10s, 2 4x10s. But actually, and we've got these mic'd, and then I've got a switch whereby I can just have one side on. Oh, is it just a 10? No, just one side, or I can do it so they're all on.
You want them all on.
Well, to be honest, I just said, look, I think the problem is I've got in-ears as well, and so they're coming through a speaker like this, you know, and it's actually not too bad. It does make a difference, you know, this whole, you know, the bottom end sort of moving you and you know, it does make a difference, you know, because you feel like, you know, it's good.
You're not detached anymore.
That's right, yeah, and it's in a way, I mean, I don't know if this is on any other questions to do with playing with Roger and stuff. No, but what I found is, and I found this on other gigs, there are certain things where I know that, say, that, you know, the drummer and the kind of thing we're doing is a bit more metronomic, or it's a bit more in, you know, pocket sort of stuff, you know, and so it's that kind of thing. But there are other things where, you know, it's a bit more floaty, and that's not good or bad. You know, in a way, it needs to be that, you know. So, and Roger's pretty solid. You know what I mean? He's fantastic at just laying down the thing. But I keep my eye on him sometimes because I want to come out of sections like Phil's the same time as he does. It doesn't matter if it's 2, whatever, but there are little things that he does, you know.
Better to be safe.
Exactly, yeah, you know what I mean. And I'm sure, you know, same with me, he's got to play with me, but for me, I just want to serve because it's him, you know, those 2 guys.
His gig.
Yeah, it's his gig, and the sound of that thing. So I just make sure that, you know, and as time's gone on, I've got to know his playing more. It's one thing to hear them on record, but to play with someone, you know. And I think he's been happy with what I'm doing, cool. You know what I mean? So but it's really interesting because what I'm trying to say is that if you fight against things, or if you think, oh no, I'm feeling it here, it can end up sounding, you know what I mean? It can end up sounding less than whatever. So when you think, actually, no, it works because as long as we move together and if it floats, it's fine because you know, and in a way, rock stuff, if it's too in the pocket, there's something wrong.
Clinical.
It's a bit clinical, and it comes across a little bit. So it's definitely got its own groove, you know what I mean? And you know, the fact is that they're still playing, and I've seen drummers, you know, Roger's age, and you sort of think, oh, you know, but Roger still goes for it. You know, he's great.
There's obviously a plus point, as John rarely sang, and as Roger said, I've heard John sing, and that's one of the reasons he was never. So obviously they're happy with what you're doing on that end. I think it's a plus.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure that's the vibe. I think it's always good to have. You know, even if it's a 3-part, if you've got 6 of us doubling it, it sounds bigger. You know what I mean? And then there's enough of us if there's a 4th thing that needs to be in there. You know, there are things where we're gagging to, you know, like ba 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 ba, you know, on Kill the Queen, but sometimes I'll say, well, we don't need to, you know, we don't need to do that because we never used to do that and blah, blah, blah. So there's some things that we put in that they didn't used to do, and I think as the tour goes on, we might add things, you know.
Okay.
That's, you know, that was the other thing about Queen with the vocals, you know, those three voices. You know, when you hear Brian and Roger, you just think, like, God, they've got this spread of voices, especially with Freddie. Well, obviously Freddie. You think, actually, yeah, because, and we, you know, because I've been privy to isolated tracks with BVs and stuff. I mean, I know everyone can do it now on YouTube with whatever, but you just go, God, that sounds fantastic, you know.
They worked at it. They really did work at it.
It's like Roger said, they got into the sausage factory thing because they just were so good at doing that thing, you know. So yeah, so that's good, and that's as exciting as playing bass parts, you know, getting to sing these things.
It is. I enjoy. What's the dynamic like? I imagine it would be quite daunting being part of the Queen machine and the history behind it, the immense back catalogue, and the public perception and pressure that's attached to doing what you're doing without putting any pressure on you. How have you dealt with that? You know, dealing with the dynamic and what people expect.
Do you mean within the group?
Yeah, I mean, what's the dynamic like? Like, you turn up at rehearsals and everyone's sort of quite happy, and it's like playing with your friends, or is it quite, you know, these are the two mega stars?
Yeah. Well, actually, no. They never. They're always very approachable and they're great. And but at the same time, if they don't want something to happen, they'll let you know. You know what I mean? They know what they want and what they don't want, but they're also open to things. And they were very, when the whole thing about the idea of maybe doing a little bass thing, I was really surprised. You know, I mean, Roger was saying, yeah, and go up front. You know, you need to do this, and Brian was saying, yeah, you should make sure thing. And then,
do you come out? Do you come to like the front of the stage? Not necessarily on the walkway.
I go on the walkway and then end up on the B stage, and Roger does the.
Some LEDs in that bass.
And then and then there's I've got the main mic where I am on the thing, but then there's about 6-7 tunes where I go to the front and just give it, you know, there was some sort to that. So they afford me quite a lot of freedom. I make sure obviously the focus is Brian, Roger and Adam, you know what I mean, and we do our thing, and just playing the music's enough, you know what I mean. But no, they're very good, and there's no you must do this or you must do that. You know, it's really good, and I think as well that I've got enough about me to know not to, you know, whatever. You know, there might be some things that, you know, you might sort of push because you think it might go down, but then they'll either go or well, I think, you know, it'd be better if we didn't because of one thing or another, and so it's fine, you know. But yeah, turn up and I tend to sort of get there and sort out what I need to make sure everything's okay. And when everyone's there, it is a bit like playing with your mates, except these mates have you know, got, you know, all this history behind them and incredible stuff. But you know, you don't. I don't sort of try and hang about with them, or you know, all the time. But what we do is because obviously everyone's got their own rooms and stuff. And we've got our band room, me, Rufus and Spike, but we all convene before the gig in the band lounge, and you know, we might warm up with either Fat Bottom Girls or I Want It All, just as a bit, you know what I mean, and that is exciting because when you hear those voices together acoustically, it's like brilliant, you know what I mean.
Did highlights of the show for you?
There's so many. Obviously the intros are great. I used to love when we did the Now I'm Here procession into Now I'm Here. It was special. It was great. We've got the kabuki that goes up. It was amazing. And the same with this, the build up to the first track. When's this going out? Is it?
Don't know yet. I would imagine
like
it'll
April,
be
May.
Around May, June, July. He might tie it in with Live Aid.
Right. Okay. So you know, when the intros to One Vision and then that whole build up to it, and Brian, you know, those are all.
The tour will be finished before this goes out.
Yeah. And so it's well, I mean, I'm not giving anything away with sets, am I? And it's just that thing, because I know what it's like when you're waiting for the band to come on, and you know, we're excited, they're excited, you know, it's brilliant. The first couple of tracks great because you're settling down and you're getting into it, and then of course there's always tracks where you think, oh, this is great, you know. But it really is, all of it. It's fantastic, you know. There are certain things where you just got to mark, you know, make sure you're doing things and you concentrate a bit more on certain things, whatever. But there are times where you can just enjoy it, like when Brian's doing his Fat Bottom Girls.
Yeah.
and you know the bit between the second chorus and the next. No, sorry, you know the little bit. It's great because you just see the joy in people's faces, you know.
And when Adam gets the right.
Yeah, well, this is why we did that for a bit.
Yeah.
And then we go. Yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, it's good now, but yeah, and well, all sorts really. I mean, I love Brian's. I know, you know, I love Brian's guitar solo because it's almost like it's this visceral thing of when you hear like and it's harmonising. You're just going, God, I am 12 again, or 11 or rather. You know what I mean? You're sort of going, it's incredible, you know, and you know, they're going, you're just going.
Yeah,
you know, it is. You know, I can feel my sort of
hair's
exactly.
going up. Yeah,
it's really difficult to sort of. It's like when you know Betancourt said it very eloquently about that. You know, it's like an emotional.
It's a library.
You know what I mean? And it is because, and I guess, and it could be David Bowie or it could be whoever. You know, when you've grown up with that, and it stays with you, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And you can't ever.
You can't turn
escape
it off.
that feeling, not that you want to,
yes.
of how these things made you feel, you know what I mean? And that's what's weird, because as you look at a Gatefold album, vinyl, and you just look and you see the dudes there, and it's like incredible, and then I stood there, but this is not right, it's just...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's funny, you know what I mean? But that's what's lovely about this. There's no... Not jaded. There's no sort of like, oh, I wish I hadn't done it. You know, it's still brilliant. I can still listen to the albums and think, you know, whatever, because it's kind of a different animal, really. But with a nod to what it was, and it's been brilliant. You know, so really parts of the show. There's some great stuff. You know, Save Me's great now that you know we're doing. Adam does it with this sort of colour voce. Well, not even that. He's just a cappella, isn't he? He's on his own, and it builds. You know, and then there's. Who Wants to Live Forever, he does a great job on, and to be honest with you, there's about 10 parts of the show that you're always looking forward to, you know what I mean? Not that anything else is, but I include those as like a run of songs, you know what I mean? The little medley bits and what have you, you know. But then there's things like where you might change it up a little bit, you know. I tell you what, I mean, when I remember the Kiev thing, which is one of the first things we did, you know, Brian was burning on Kind of Magic, you know, Roger was with him, you know what I mean? And the other thing as well about that was like that was essentially, you know, after the 8-minute medley MTV thing, that was the first gig, and it was like 300,000 people.
That's right.
I mean, I've got a picture of an aerial view, and it's just like it's silly. It makes no sense.
Legs go to rubber that night.
I was a little bit, you know, because I didn't feel. Not that we weren't ready, but I just thought, oh, there's a few things here. It's outdoor. Have we got this right? What's the sound like? You know, there's all these things. You know, but it turned out to be great. You know what I mean? And you know, there's a couple of things. You know what I mean? But it's what you expect. You know what I mean? But it's actually, yeah, I still have fond memories of that. You know.
I was going to ask you favourite Queen tracks and ours. We can do that by email. That's cool.
Okay.
Right, 4 questions. This is kind of in the John feature. How does it feel to be walking in his shoes? Did the band give you any pointers, or was it just do your own thing?
Well, it did feel a very special thing to be. You know, when you're it's a terrible thing to say, special thing to be, but you know what I mean. It is great. You know, I didn't necessarily think about, you know, walking in his shoes and this that and the other, because I thought, well, John's John and what he did. And the same with Danny, you know, Danny Miranda, you know, must have thought the same thing when he was doing his thing, you know. I think that you just got to try and, in answer to the latter part of the question, no, they didn't give me any, you know, you have to do this. They're pretty easy about it, and I'm sure that if I hadn't been as nerdy on some of the things, they'd still be okay about it, as long as it fulfills the role of what the bass is doing. But there are little things where it matters, and I suppose they'd hear it too and go, oh yeah, that's that. But no, they're pretty cool about it, and I think they knew by now as well that at that time that I was probably going to try and get down the little things, you know. But no, it's very exciting to sort of do this, play this music like an iconic band with iconic musicians, and playing John Deacon's parts, you know what I mean, and stuff. And it's weird because now you can actually isolate bass parts, can't you? So you can sort of, you know. And I used to, like in Killer Queen, I used to do the ba 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 jin jin. I used to play it as a fifths, you know, at the on the D string and the G string at the 10th and 12th fret. It goes C to B flat, but actually he only plays G to F. And it's the bottom end of the piano, I think you can try, or something, you know, or guitar, I can't remember. So sometimes you think it's so buried in the mix you can't hear it, and then you go, oh, what's the isolated track? You go, oh, that's good, yeah, got that. Oh, that's interesting. I never, you know, so these are quite good now. You can sort of like really delve into things, you know. Yeah, but I think, but I still try and put that in because I think live it sort of beefs it up a little bit, you know. But yeah, so well, yeah, it just feels fantastic, and no, they didn't lay down any sort of law really. It was great.
He was obviously a big inspiration to you, sort of from when you were a kid and growing up. Any particular moments that he's played that give you a warm, fuzzy feeling?
Oh yeah, well, Queen 2, things like Fairclough's Masterstroke. If you listen to that, it's a bit of a tour de force. You know what I mean? It's a lovely. I get the feeling as well that actually John and Freddie worked. I think they worked together a lot. You know, like Millionaire Waltz. I think they've. You know, Freddie said, "I'm doing this." What have you know? And I'm sure they've worked on it. Millionaire Waltz being one of them. I think that what for me, there's the functionality part of bass, which John did great, and so because of the classical elements that were sometimes in there, he would do some interesting stuff, probably working with Freddie. And then there's like the rock and roll side of the stuff. But he also did these lovely, and he managed to do it without stepping on anyone's toes. Just little frilly things, you know. If he did like, you know, bits like "In Love of My Life," you know, he would play things that you think, why would you? Gosh, he's playing it right up there. But in the track, you go, it's actually perfect.
It makes sense, yeah.
Because if he did play it, even if he played it here, you know, at this position, it would still probably be too much. Just doing that has given it. And you know, like when you hear, you know, the back end of "Sail Away, Sweet Sister," you know, they must have just thought like, you know, it's a lovely little trail off, isn't it? You know what I mean? And you're listening, fading out. Go on, keep going. Keep going.
It's a shame actually when they kind of got to the 80s, he kind of stopped doing a lot.
Well,
of that.
That's the thing is, I think that they, for a lot of, the way I see it is, I wonder whether they got exhausted of the intricacies of what they did in the studio.
Maybe.
The first 5 albums for me are that part of their artistic endeavour where they got everything in there and it was incredible. You know, March of the Black Queen, you know, the first album
Prophet
as well.
Song.
But you know, Prophet Song is like, you see, this is the thing. You know, I've even heard people going on about, oh, I hate that vocal bit. It's like, there's no part of the Prophet Song that isn't incredible. So all bugger off, right? I'm not having that. It's incredible. And then. There's so much stuff like on Night at the Opera on a daily basis, but then even when like News of the World, and this is why they were brilliant, is that they thought, right, we're gonna go to the other extreme. I know the punk thing was happening; it might have been an answer to that, but you know, it's like a raw sound, isn't it? You know, and it's.
But even elements of that ended up in jazz.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You've got "Let Me Entertain You" and "Dead on Time."
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Oh yeah, I mean, and you know, things like what's the one now? There's just like in Jealousy, you know, where that I think it's all Freddie actually, but it goes, if only you could see it as one. You just go, it's just incredible.
And the bit,
it's brilliant. And actually, you know, John Deacon, he would do that. He would be playing, and then he might just do this, and if you were to play it to someone isolated, you might think that's a bit random. Yeah. But within the composition, it's perfect. And
you can tell he obviously maybe they had the track and he'd go off into a little room and. Work out. I don't know if I've got this right, but I don't know if Brian told me this, but I think, or maybe I read somewhere that John never wanted you to tell him the chord progression, because obviously he could hear it, but he wanted to do his thing. And this is the sort of gold dust I'm after here.
Well, you know, when you look at you know, other bands, of course, there's always been great. You know, some of my jazzy muso friends will balk if I say Iron Maiden. They're utterly incredible, and they'll go, "What?" And you'll just go, "No, hang on a second.
Look at the back catalogue.
What they do, it's brilliant. You know what I mean?" And I can still talk to you about Weather Report and Miles Davis. Well, I love all that. Yeah. But I think that's the thing is when people close themselves off at certain things, and but with Queen, you know, you had this, you know, the music was so paramount. You know, the importance of getting it right. You know, I mean, this is the other thing as well. When people pap on about, you know, they say, oh, Freddie was a flamboyant frontman, and you know what a character and all this stuff. Yeah, but they completely override the fact that he was utterly incredible. Compositions, clever, beautiful things. The Take My Breath Away intro, you know, all that. You know, the BVs that they did on You're My Best Friend. I mean, it rivals, you know, talk about Beach Boys and stuff. If you listen to that, like, do you remember the classic album series?
Yeah.
Ooh, ooh,
Yeah.
you know, just like that. And Seaside Rendezvous and all this stuff. You
All
know?
of that. And all that's happening is, as time goes by, the legend's getting bigger.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing as well is because you know, I read a couple of things where there was one guy who was purportedly going through the Queen albums. You might have seen a little book about that big. And he was like saying, you know, essentially Queen were a singles
was it in
band.
Classic Rock? And they did
No, it was a special little book. It's about that big. They did it for Zeppelin and whatever. And this guy was saying, I mean, obviously, essentially Queen were a singles band, and I felt like going, sod off. I'm sorry, no. Yes, they were in the sense that, and I'm sure later on they were aware of the importance of singles and stuff. But come on, you can't. Seaside Rendezvous is fantastic and good company. Whatever.
Leroy Brown, you know.
Leroy Brown, you know what I mean?
Complete.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff that is incredible.
Offshoot.
Yeah, and you just go, you can't say that. I'm sorry.
He's obviously been
like going, no, you know. So when people, you know, when they do the ubiquitous Freddie in Yellow Jacket impression, you know, you sort of go, yeah, but
there was so much more.
You've made him a caricature out of something that is was one moment in time that he did. And like you said, the Live Aid thing, you know, how to just completely go. I think because of that as well, the fact that they did it right, they did it as you know, the global jukebox thing, and
he shouldn't have been doing it.
I know Doc said don't do it, and he still blew people away.
Exactly.
And when people just went, do you know what? They are incredible, and they've just proved it. And I think that, but earlier on, you know, with This Is Why I Love, you know, I mean, that deep cuts thing that the 3 deep cuts thing is great. And it's always been true that, you know, I mean, I've always liked that. I always like album tracks from bands, where, you know, because I always think, well, you know, if they'd released that one, who knows? It could have been, you know, it could have been a big single. I don't know, but you know, the discussions, aren't they? Like you know, Long Away or You and I. You know what I mean? They'll sort of people have said that could have been a great single, but you go, well, maybe, but you know,
time's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
time's passed. Night at the Opera. Aside from Bo Rat, have you played any of the other tunes from the album at all?
39.
Of course.
Do 39, and we haven't done
And Love of
I'm
My
in Love
Life.
of My Car on since I've been doing it, because I don't know whether they just wanted to rest that up or Roger's not doing, but the Love of My Life Brian does as a little tribute to Fred, and you get to see him on the screen, and which is lovely, and they did it the way that they used to do it live, not the full ensemble, but yeah, I mean, coming back from school and putting on the Prophet song and just losing myself, you know, with your mum. You can't hear what she's saying, but you know, it's like your tea's ready or something.
Yeah, the mouth is going, but
the madman's happening, you know. Yeah, so there's that, but also, you know, the just the vitriol in Death on Two Legs. That, you know, the utter joy of Lazy on a Sunday Afternoon, you know. And in fact, John does a lovely thing at the outro of that. He does a little where he inverts part of the chords, so the bass line keeps going up. You just think it's just beautiful. It's all lovely. And then obviously there's Love My Car, My Best Friend. I don't know. I'm getting the order. 39. Sweet Lady.
Not one of my favourites.
Seaside
Anything that
Rendezvous.
compares someone to a piece of cheese in the lyric. Just, I can't.
But yeah, but it's a rock song. It's a rock song in 3, and for that, you can forgive it everything. Yeah, all that. It's good stuff. I mean,
Was it a seminal album for you over the years?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one of those albums that
has gained.
Yeah, and because for some reason none of the other albums seem to get put into that category. Maybe Sheer Heart Attack, but none of the others seem to come out as a classic status.
Well,
yet
people make this mistake about A Day at the Races, don't they? They sort of see it as a sort of follow-up to it, and because it shares a sort of title thing. But also, someone said, "Oh yeah, Somebody to Love." You know, it's like a poor man's Bohemian Rhapsody, or I'm paraphrasing. I'm thinking it's nowhere near what Bohemian
We
Rhapsody
Are the Champions was written at the same time
Exactly.
as Bo Rat and was on 2 albums later.
Of course, but I also feel like saying, but hang on a second, Somebody to Love is nowhere near what you think Bohemian Rhapsody is. It's a brilliant,
different.
It's
a soul
absolutely, yeah, it's fantastic. You can't do that. Good Old Fashioned Loverboy. Why that wasn't a bigger hit, I'll never know.
Well, it was an EP.
It was an EP. That's right. Yeah.
And it was 76 in the summer. Everyone was out in the sun.
Yeah, maybe.
Disco was rife.
Why did they do the EP? They should have done it as a single. Yeah, I've got that somewhere. Yeah. But I think that's the problem, is that
same reason as Thank God It's Christmas kind of just gets
Yeah,
overlooked.
no, it
It's
does,
part of that
yeah.
4-track
yeah,
EP
Yeah,
to
God,
take the rest of the things off that album.
One of my wish lists. What time is it?
It's 25. I've got
Oh, yeah,
one more question. After this.
My wish list was that we might have a little play through Princes of the Universe. That never came up, of course, but
Tear It Up would be good.
yeah, it would.
Although every time I've ever heard that live, it's never as good as the recorded version. Feels
Right.
like they always try to hurry it. Kind of the groove
Right, yeah,
goes.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, there are gems throughout the
Oh
catalogue.
yeah, it's great. It's like you
Oh,
know,
I love
that's
that.
great.
I love that.
I mean, you know, I think that. I mean, maybe it was because Freddie didn't have long, but I think if he wasn't and they
That
carried
was
on,
meant to be the last track on the last album.
what was?
That was the impression
Oh,
I
right,
got.
yes, yeah.
Was that they didn't think they were going to get to. Because I remember reading in one of the fan club mags, I think it was the one that Brian wrote the letter for after Freddie had died, that they didn't think he would last past the Miracle.
Right.
And that suddenly, when I read that, so that was 91, I was thinking, what was the last song on Miracle? Was it all worth it? That would have been the last song. You can ask.
But when you look at Innuendo as well, I mean, they were heading back to Night at the Opera territory, weren't they? You know what I mean? And you know, and actually, Made in Heaven, considering its circumstances, and whatever, there's some great stuff on it.
I love it.
It's brilliant.
Any words of wisdom, insight, or advice that you think might be useful for players starting out and the wizened old hacks like me?
Well,
one of the things that I'm really happy about that you're on this gig is that someone who doesn't necessarily work in name circles, you know, until you were doing this, I wouldn't have seen you playing in, you know, big star band, and it's someone like you who's just worked really hard, a genuinely nice guy, puts in a shift and is probably very conscientious about his work, has got the gig.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you.
Because it would have been very easy for them just to go and pick Danny Miranda or Neil Murray or whoever.
Yeah,
You've got the gig.
Yeah. No, I know it is. I can't believe it. I'm very, very fortunate. I'm very lucky. But in terms of, I think, for old wizened dudes like us, I think that the old adage of, you know, just never giving up. I've seen a lot of players who were great over the years, and you don't see them for a bit. Oh, what, you know, they're working in computers, or they're doing this, that, the other, which is completely nothing wrong with. But I always think, oh, what are they not playing at all? No, they're not. And I just thought, it's a shame. And I realise that not everyone can, and it is hard because there are times when you've got no money and people around you going, oh, shouldn't you be doing something? You know what I mean? And you can't explain to people that no, it's not. It's not like an office job where I can change it. This is part of what I am. I love this.
It's a lifestyle.
I'll be unhappy if I don't do this. And if you try and, I would never want to do that to someone else. You know what I mean? So I always say to people, whether they're young or old, I said, just keep going because you don't know what's around the corner. And this happened to me, you know, in my 40s. You know what I mean? And there you go. You know what I mean? I know geography can be a lot to do with it and being part of the centre of the business part of it and, you know, doing stuff. But, you know, if you still care enough and you know, you can succeed, you know, somewhere. And actually, making a living from music is a success, isn't it? You know, whether it's function bands or whether it's writing compositions or whatever, it's all good stuff, you know what I mean? And as you know, it's very difficult for especially creative minds, you know what I mean? People expect music for nothing, you know what I mean? People have no qualms about, you know, it's like Vince Gill who said, you know, people will pay 99p for a fart app, but they have a problem paying some money for someone's music that they've, you know what I mean? It's all gone weird, you know what I mean? Having said that, for youngsters, I would say I wouldn't just keep it to one genre. of music. If you can, even if you study a little bit of stuff, even if you're never going to play, if you're never going to be a jazz musician, just dip into it. Just get a little thing because it's sort of one for the joy of hearing great music. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter if it doesn't float your boat. You can say, well, I've tried that and I don't like it. But I think you can. Sometimes I've seen people who just work within one framework, and then in a way what they've done is if they've just stepped out a little bit of it, whether it's folk or African or reggae or whatever, it just gives you a bit of insight into it. And it also means that if you do, like Queen, step into it, of course I'm not suggesting that all these bands were, you know, amazing at all these different things. What Queen did was they made it their sound, and but you could see what they were doing. And but for a musician, like I've done a folk band that had African grooves, you know, I've done Latin stuff, so I had to know about tumbos and transcribe some heavy Latin stuff and write it out and go, oh Christ, you know what I mean? So it's good because then you're sort of studying a little bit and your craft gets there. Or even if you just want to play what you play, just keep going, you know what I mean? I think something will come up, you know what I mean? And even if nothing comes up, at least you tried, you know what I mean? You know. But if you do stop and give up, then nothing will happen. That's for sure. You know. So yeah, I think that's it really. I just think giving up can be a bit of a, you know, you don't want to do that. You know, unless you're unhappy doing it, unless you find no joy in it. But I think sometimes people think, oh, maybe I should grow up and get a proper job. You know, well, okay, but even if you get a job, you know, you can keep doing it. You know what I mean? But for some people, I think it's more than that, isn't it? You know, it's